Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're checking out Omen portals. So we've had a few Omen portals on the channel over the course of, well, since Omen of the 10 came out, really, since Omen portal took the stage very quickly next to Maisha as some of the best portal variants, and the hybrid ones like this in particular does a wonderful job. This one in particular I do find focuses more on potentially winning with Omen than Maisha, although I've had success with both, as you probably see in this video, to be honest. Does a pretty good job, mostly focusing on the puppet clears and getting them everything out, getting them all ready. The new Gear Turner is an amazing heal card, since you can generate puppets pretty rapidly and be able to get a heap out, plus it can generate potentially 2 puppets on its own, so that is a really nice touch. Of course, the only issue I found with this deck at all is the fact of having to make sure to try and have an Evo for Omen of Destruction at minimum, and potentially having to save one for Hero of Purgation if I feel like my matchup is not going to be favourable. I think if I did some more testing, I could get that matchup down a lot better and learn each one pretty well, to the point where I wouldn't need to worry about how many Evos I'm holding. I just have to make sure I can get one or the other going at each time, since really you can be completely crippled playing Omen if they have a banishment spell, for your amulet, which, since there is that generic 4-drop spell now, it's not a big surprise, and a lot of people are running that to counter Elena, so you'll see that a lot against Portal as well. So we're going to get right into this and check it out. So for our first matchup, we have Portal versus Sword. Really not a bad matchup overall, definitely could have done better for a match, but Sword is actually an extremely powerful deck right now, so why not make that the first matchup for this video? So Magna Giant, a card I didn't really talk about in the intro part, is actually pretty decent as just a straight up tutor card, and also not bad as kind of a mass removal card. It's a very well balanced one for these kind of decks and can be used extremely effectively on small boards. I don't find it anywhere near as good on large boards, in this deck in particular, because it does rely on, of course, things like mecha wings going off like this, and that can be a little tricky sometimes. But we've definitely got a good start here with both Maisha and Omen in our openers, along with a good way to generate some puppets and remove some things. And I did decide to try and hold on to our Machina cards as much as I could for board presence to start off with, just in case they played something silly this turn, like Cyber Cannoneer here. So we've got a pretty decent drop now, definitely. Getting over Destruction on board on turn 4 is usually the ideal scenario, and because it does have its own removal, usually can pick up at least 1 to 2 kills with it. If not, it usually will at least absorb a spell or 2. And that was good, absorbing a Techno Lord. I couldn't have asked for a much better one there. Turn 5, going to be a little trickier, since I've got to come up with something to actually do for this turn that will decrease our destruction play low enough, and going for 3 puppets I thought was probably the best move I could make. If I wasted an Evo though, I could have done better. If I used my Evo, removed the 1/1, I could have then kept a puppet in hand and played it off next turn, but since we have a second gear turn in hand, I'm not too worried. Especially since we've already got Destruction in white down to completely playable levels. And Joy of Destruction, I mean, is now usable, so we don't even need to worry about playing anything else. The only real problem now is going to be getting onto that Destruction in black, playing it out, and allowing it to try and finish off the opponent. And I haven't really had to spend any Evos in any crazy ways, so far that feels really good. That's why I could easily go for this Puppet Troopmaster, no problem. Since we only have both the Maisha in hand and the Destruction in black. So anything we draw now, puppet or not, is just value for us. Alright, so opponent Dragonites, that's fair. Lancelot play makes perfect sense, although I think the ward play might have been slightly better. Although they're definitely aiming to, of course, wipe us out. Lucky for us though, Puppet Shock plus the puppet plays will get us pretty much back up to max health, or close to it at the minimum. Since we can only realistically, we can play 4 of them, but we only have 3, so there is that. 19 health I think is plenty though against Sword to at least survive a single turn. Especially if you watched my last video where we did play this exact deck that we're playing against, so helps that that was one of the decks I'd literally just done a video on. For this next game we are Portal against Mecha Blood. Basically whenever you see blood now, predictably it's going to be some form of Mecha Blood. If you see anything else, it's very probably mediocre at this point, and I don't expect anything crazy to be coming out for a while, so. I mean, Vengeance Blood had a good couple of week run if it was lucky. I mean, 2 weeks, that's okay, I guess. It would have been nice if it had at least 3 weeks in the meta, so we could, you know, finish up with it at least. I think it's fair if you usually give decks at least 3 weeks before you start, you know, throwing the nerfs at them. But that's okay. So we've got some alright plays so far going on, mostly just puppet focused stuff, nothing too crazy. I was mainly just aiming for very early puppet plays, and since we don't have anything useful in our hand yet, I can't really afford to play Puppet Trope Master. Even if I'm double drawing, clogging our deck up with 30 puppets is not the best way to do things. I think it's 30 or 20, I don't know. It's clogging up with a lot of puppets, let's just put it that way for now. So I decided to go for the puppet play like this. We can actually wipe them out completely now. It might not have been the best line of play, but it did the job. Since I was hoping to actually save Zwei till next turn, I suppose I could have come up with a puppet play that went with Joy Destruction and tried to beat him that way, but I was still reasonably happy with how this played out. So we do need to wipe this out now. Marionette Lad is a pretty decent option for taking both these out without much issue. And because of how many followers we have had destroyed so far, Maisha is definitely looking like the way to go for the win. I just need to, 1, get Maisha in hand, and 2, make it to turn 10, which can be quite hard against Mecha Blood, making it to turn 10. It's one of the trickier decks to actually get there without just straight up dying. Although, that Magna Giant definitely is going to help us out. We managed to keep ourselves at 20 health so far, and that's always a good sign. Unleash the Nightmare. That's pretty good, and Gear Snake. None of that is super useful for them yet. I don't think Magna has anything it can do though, and since we did get the Maisha now, I can actually go for the Trope Master. So the problem is I don't think we played any Magina followers, so we're not going to get the full value out of the Magna Giant to actually clear the 1/1s. If I had have at least had 1, I could have potentially played it for a full sweep. So instead, I decided to use it as just a summoning card, trying to get me something else, especially since I think the way this deck is set up, there are only 3 Magina cards. So there's, of course, this hoverboard, there's Magna Giant, and then there is the Mecha Wing. Mecha Wing, that's the one I was thinking of. Those alone are enough to make this function. It just means that your giants aren't going to be super large, but they're really consistent to pull. So with this, we can actually take all of this out. I mean, we can't take out the 6-2, but with the 5-5 on board, that's almost a guaranteed trade, I think. And if they don't, if they somehow get past all this, which by the looks of it they're probably going to, we can easily just drop the Magna Giant next turn, pretty much wipe the board out, set up a nice 5-5 ward, and force them to deal with it that way. Which even double mono will have trouble with unless they already have 1 buffed, which I don't think we've seen many buff plays, so not a big concern. Especially going into turn 10 where we of course have Maisha, with a nice couple of puppets set up to go along with her. And that is going to be lethal, the Maisha, well over 20 damage now. I decided to make sure definitely that we're going to be well over 20. I even, I think, checked at the time this. And we were definitely well over it, being able to go for the Maisha with the, of course, Hero Purgation play. Not even needing to get that far because our opponent just concedes flat right there. So this deck definitely worked out okay for me. I did find that if I come up against any of the kind of counter decks, so anything running really the heavy removal for Omen of Destruction can be really difficult. You can make up for that with Hero of Purgation if you can get that set up, but usually the decks that are countering Omen of Destruction are pretty decent ward bringers and do a fairly decent job of just completely blocking you out, so that doesn't usually work. If you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. You will find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, guys, see ya.